Here's your host, Giuseppe Grammatico, the franchise guide.
What didn't we talk about? Any other options? Obviously, we talked
Sure.
about best practice and how to go about this, but any other options you can think of? I mean, that really
I
covered
mean,
quite a bit.
there's unsecured lending that Benetrends
Okay.
offers outside of the SBA. This is, not through, again, the SBA process. Usually a pretty quick process compared to SBA, but a much higher interest rate. So if somebody might not qualify for SBA or, there's unsecured lending options, again, higher interest, but could be potential for people to utilize. There's good old fashioned cash and liquidity. There's people borrowing from friends and family, rich uncle, mom and dad, whomever. But the moral of the story, Giuseppe, is honestly like do your research, understand your options, and just figure out, what's at your disposal and what you can utilize. And honestly, sometimes we have to have the tough conversation is, hey, you don't qualify right now. And that's fine. Like, but this is what we try to do is give them a roadmap. So you're here today. If you can get here, you're good, right? And I'm sure you've seen this in your line of work. I know I have. I have seen people come back 10 years later and say, you know what, now's the time, right? So the more you can just educate yourself on options and, leveraging your personal assets and financial situation, I think the better off it is, whether it's today, whether it's next year or 5 years down the road. It's always good to educate yourself on what's out there.
Yep, I like that. And the proactiveness is big because you've been denied for the SBA. Great. Why was I denied, and what's the plan? Is it simply I had someone get denied years ago when I first started, and no explanation. Working with a small, I forget the name of the company, not to mention on the show, but yeah, they got denied, and I'm like, well, did you find out why? They said, no, we just got denied. So we called back, and it was simply the credit score.
Yep.
The credit score need to increase. There was actually something on there that actually was a mistake
That
on the
happens all
credit
the time.
report, and it's just like they didn't run their scores. They had no idea. They had everything else was fine. So okay, you know what? They made some recommendations. Maybe call credit repair company, make these changes, contact the credit bureau. Let's get that back up to speed. And I forget how many months, 3 to 6 months, that score got back up and they were approved. But being proactive about it as well, because everything has to line up. Have to the expectation on the business, but on the financials, if the timing isn't right, okay, what's missing? Credit score is great, but you have your liquidity is a little bit light. If you get it up to another 20 or 30,000, we can probably get you approved. And that goes a long way because now I have a map. I have something to work off of instead of just saying, okay, do I just call you in a year and cross my fingers? So,
That's also the benefit of working with a Benetrends or a company like us, right? We do soft credit pulls, we do background checks. We can help the client with business plan writing if they are doing an SBA loan, right? There's a big package that goes into putting together, an SBA loan, and that includes a business plan. It includes, financials. Sometimes the client can do it on their own. Sometimes they don't have the bandwidth or knowledge to do it. So we can help them with it, right? So when I do talk to somebody that says, hey, I'm going to go to my local bank, I recommend that all the time. Fine, go talk to somebody, but they're not going to get the hand holding that they will from us or somebody in our space that's going to walk them through every stage of the lending process. So it's good to have, I tell people all the time, surround yourself with experts, right? When you talk to your clients, you say, hey, I know enough to be dangerous, but talk to Benetrends, talk to Mike, and having a resource with you, it certainly helps because stuff pops up and not everybody is capable of doing it on their own, and it needs some hand holding, and there's nothing wrong with that.
I agree. You take advantage of the resources. Best part is that there's no cost for the initial consultation. So you get a review, you're going to learn something, you're going to get some options. There's no cost unless you move forward with any of the services that Benetrends has to offer. Even get the benefit of a credit check, a soft credit check. This is something that comes up. Well, what does that even mean? So sometimes I have to take a step back because people are like, you talk about soft credit checks. What's the difference between a soft check and a hard check? Well, a soft check is that it won't hit your credit score, that it won't affect it in any way. So, those are questions that come up. So I realize I have to get into explain things a little bit more for first-time business owners, but you take advantage and say, okay, what's in line. Sometimes the credit score, this is another thing, maybe it doesn't match up with the credit score at home. And there's a difference that you get maybe from TransUnion, and the banks use, I guess, a different system. So you have an all-inclusive, you get a plan, you get a roadmap. So if timing isn't right, this is what you need. The timing is right. Okay, these are, some of the plans or some of the options that you qualify for. And now you're like, oh, wait a second. I can get a loan up to 400,000 or 500,000. I may want to look at brick and mortar. I may want to look at a physical location with a build out. So this has been awesome. This has been truly helpful.
Ready to get proactive about your franchise funding? Explore your options and get expert guidance by visiting Benetrends.com and choose the right path at htsggthefranchiseguide.com.
Thanks for tuning in. If you want to learn how to make the transition from corporate to owning your franchise, join Giuseppe on the next episode. You can also follow on all social media platforms and achieve financial and time freedom today.